Okay, so I'm starting the build of the PT-20. This is a GreatPlanes kit. So it tells you to start on the fuselage, but I have this nice flat glass plate down on my table, and I'm going to start on some of these flat pieces that need to be glued together. So the stabilizer and fin. So let's get started. So I measured the center of these pieces and used my square to draw a center line. So that part's done, and also did it on here. And so I'm going to line it up, make sure it sits flat, and then I'm going to put a piece of masking tape along that seam, and that'll keep the wood together and also keep the two pieces flat in the same plane. So I tear off a piece of masking tape. I'm going to hold it, get it lined up here on the end. Okay. And then squeeze the two pieces together and stick the tape down. And then it kind of stretched out, and then squeeze here. Okay, and then just press it down all the way across. And the other advantage of the tape is we're going to flip it over and glue from the other side, but it keeps the glue from seeping further through the seam and causing more glue to be on the balsa. And you don't want a lot of this CA glue on the surface of the balsa. It makes it more difficult to sand and won't look as good. So I'm tearing off another piece that should go the rest of the way across the seam. Okay. So I'll squeeze it down here, tightly, leave it here, leave it there. So just squeezing to close that seam in as tight as I can get it. Okay, so now what we can do is we can take I'm using medium CA glue here. And so I can open up the seam and put glue along the edge of one of the pieces of wood, balsa wood. Okay, that looks good. Then I'll put this back together and lay it flat on the table. That sheet of glass, and then press down. Grab a rag and just make sure there's not a lot of excess glue on this top edge. Just wipe that off. And then I can take my 120 sanding block and just sand this surface. And any of the sawdust goes into the crack. If there's more of a crack, and then that glue can dry as the sawdust goes into the crack. Okay, so just checking to make sure I don't feel any seam. I don't. It seems nice and flat. So I can take this and put it back over the plan. We can peel our tape off now. Maybe we could peel the tape off. Helps to have fingernails, and I guess mine are too short. There we go, now I'm getting it. Okay, now I've got it. Okay, now what I want to do is glue the piece of wood to the end. There I think these are 5-inch. Yeah, they're 5-inch by 3/16 by 3/8 by 5 inches. So I'm going to glue this all the way to the, even at the top. First I want to just make sure this edge is totally flat. So I'll put some glue on this edge. Just line that up. Take my rag, wipe off the excess glue. And just sand it. The sawdust goes into that glue joint. And we'll do the same on this side. Glue on there. That lined up, press it on. Wipe off any excess glue. Sand it to get that sawdust into that seam. So what these do are they help that with this grain it could warp some, and this stabilizes the tip so that it doesn't, you know, get that warping. Okay. Alright. So we can flip this over. Sand this side too. Okay. We'll shape that to the right shape later. So I want to cut these off now and do the same thing with the elevator. So I'll just cut those off and then glue those onto the elevator. So I need something to put down on this wax paper so I don't end up cutting through the wax paper. So put this piece of, I have a scrap piece of plywood. Grab a razor saw. So line this up with the trailing edge, or the hinge line I should say, of the stabilizer, and just cut it off flush. And the same thing on this side. These corners are going to get radiused, so we can just sand that to the right radius that we want. First sand it parallel to the leading edge, and then just round off that corner. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Could do a little more radiusing, I guess. I'm gonna maybe cut this one off just to show you another way of doing this. So start out, cut parallel to the leading edge. Cut that little chunk off. And then we're going to cut this corner off. And then we'll start sanding. This gets the bulk of the material off so that you don't have to do as much sanding. Just another way of doing it. Eventually we'll be rounding the edges, but for now I'm going to leave that until later. This one's looking pretty good. Get a little more sanding. Okay. Take a little more off of the side. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so all right. Just gonna weight that down flat on the glass. Okay, now we got these little pieces. So these go onto our elevator. Pushing it against the elevator while I tape it down. Same on this side. I'll redo this a little higher and I can sand off what part that doesn't reach. Okay, that's better. It's just a little short on one side, so I didn't want it to end up short. You can always cut or sand it off, but if it's too short, you can't add as easily. Okay, wipe off any excess. And sand right away. Get some of that sawdust down into that seam. Peel our tape off. Make sure it's sanded flush. With this medium CA, it doesn't dry as fast, so you have time to kind of do some of these things where it helps fill in the gaps. Oops, looks like I lost one. Okay, so I'll do that end over. Try that again. I suppose this end grain is probably really soaking in the glue. Okay, I've got plenty of CA on there this time. Okay. Let that sit for a little bit. I'm gonna move these two pieces over here, so I have a little more room to work on the rudder, fin and rudder. Okay, so fin and the rudder. Get a piece of tape for the seam here. Squeeze that. Try and close up that seam as much as possible. Okay, my ruler. Open this up and put some CA, medium CA in here. Any excess on the top. A little sandpaper. Get some sanding dust in there. Put it back over. Peel the tape off. Make sure there's no excess glue. And sand here, the seam. Okay, there we go. That gives us our fin and the stabilizer, elevator, fin and rudder. So then just have radius sanding to do, plus the angle sanding on the hinge line.